I've been having a great time riding my DRZ. After cleaning the carb out, sorting out the suspension and some issues with the frame, and also a bunch of other really grungy stuff, without forgetting that we did valve clearances on it, the bike runs like a top. It's so much fun. Just look at this. Why am I back here at the shop with my cylinder head in my hands? Well, I went to ride my DRZ and I put about 300 miles on it. And then I parked it in my parking lot, and the next day it just wouldn't start, refused to start. So I went through a bunch of troubleshooting thinking maybe it was a sensor or something that had vibrated loose, and it wasn't. Unfortunately, the intake valve that was at zero clearance when I got the bike has gone back to zero clearance. Now, I had hope when I acquired the bike that the reason that valve was at zero clearance is just because one of the previous owners maybe didn't set the valves right. But it now seems like it's going to be a deeper issue. Why is a valve being at zero clearance a bad thing, and why does it prevent a bike to start? Well, I'm glad you asked. To function correctly, a motor needs to be able to draw in the correct mixture of air and gas for it to ignite and then send through the exhaust. That is what allows combustion. A valve being too tight, an intake valve being too tight, actively prevents the bike from drawing in that mixture of gas and air needed to create the explosion that powers the bike and makes us have fun. So having intake valves that don't have the correct clearance is a problem because it creates a situation where the bike cannot draw in the mixture it needs to power the bike. Why would this happen? Well, I have a theory. On the DRZ, the valves are coated, and you're not supposed to lap them in. Lapping a valve is the process of mating the valve with its resting surface in the head. Now, on the DRZ, you're not supposed to do that. Here's the quote from the service manual right here. Now, some people claim that they've lapped the valves on the DRZ with absolutely no issue, but what you're doing when you're lapping the valve is that you're going through that hardening compound to the softer valve material underneath. So when the valve wears, it's wearing into the valve way more than if the coating was still there. So on the exhaust valves, we can see that the face of the valve is all black and the coating of the valve is supposed to be black. But when we look at the intake valves, the side is silver. In this case, what this caused was cavitation. If you look at the intake valve, you can see that the intake valve has this kind of U shape that is wearing into it. This is bad. This is where the valve is actually receding into the head, causing our situation where we have zero valve clearance. Now, this is just a theory, but how are we going to fix this? Well, I'm going to have to bring this head to a machine shop. I don't have the know-how or the tools to put new valves in and cut the seats myself. I'm also curious to see what they are going to tell me about what caused this issue. Let's put this in the backpack and I'm going to head to the machine shop and see how much money this is going to cost me.
So, I'm happy to announce that I just dropped off the engine at the machine shop. So he is going to cut new seats for the valves and probably also do a little bit of thread repair. I have one of the camshaft keepers that was feeling like it was going to strip. So, you know, better safe than sorry, and going to get that repaired as well. So that is going to take about 2 weeks. In the meantime, I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be replacing the cam chain, and I'm also going to be doing all of the Loctite fixes. So the Loctite fixes are basically putting Loctite on a bunch of bolts inside of the engine that have the bad habit of rattling out because, you know, big singles vibrate, and Loctite keeps bolts from vibrating. So we're going to be doing that, and hope that is going to keep us busy for 2 weeks, and then we're going to be putting the cylinder back on.
Getting access to the cam chain to remove it and replace it wasn't too hard, but it was pretty annoying because you have to remove the whole side cover, then the clutch basket holder in order to get enough access to replace the cam chain. Did I have to do this? No, but I'm trying to be pretty conscientious with this build and not leave any stone unturned in order to make sure I have a strong engine. Getting to the cam chain gives me a good excuse to Loctite the counterbalancer nut while I'm at it. If you're doing this yourself, remember the counterbalancer nut is a reverse thread, so it's a righty-loosey. If I had to name this phase of the project, it would be called scope creep, because in the end of the day I decided to also replace the piston, because why not, and I decided to put in a nice forged V-scope piston while I was at it. I didn't re-hone the cylinder bore. It is coated with a very hard coating and the cross hatching looked okay, so hopefully that doesn't come bite me in the ass later. There's nothing I like more than the look of nice shiny parts fresh out of the box. Almost makes my credit card debt worth it. As with any new piston and rings, you want to make sure that the rings are in correct spec, so I'm pushing the rings down the bore and measuring the gap, and here I got pretty lucky and all my rings measured within spec. Now at this stage you might be wondering, hey Axel, why did you do a big bore kit? And the answer is simple. Money and end usage. This is going to be a kind of adventure, learn how to dirt build, and I fully expect to treat it badly and have to basically rebuild it in 10,000 miles. And when I do so, then I'm probably going to put a big bore kit at that stage. Look at how pretty that piston looks. I couldn't leave it alone, so I also decided to add some pretty nice valves to the head when I had it rebuilt. So I went with Ferrea one-piece valves. The theory with one-piece valves is that if one ever contacts the piston, it will bend and not break. Hopefully that never happens, but they also happen to be the best reviewed valves for the DRZ. I was so happy to hear from the machine shop that my head was ready and had no issues. The valves were installed, new seats were cut, and it's just ready to reassemble. At this point, I start to get pretty nervous about the amount of money spent and time spent, and I really hope that this thing will start. Because if it doesn't, it's going to have to go the route of a part out, and I really don't want to spend that much time on eBay. So finally putting the finishing touches on this thing, we're going to put some break-in oil in, and then we're going to see if it starts up. So yeah, I'm using mineral oil for a break-in, and gonna heat cycle it a couple of times if this thing starts, and yeah, then change it after a couple of heat cycles and put some more proper oil in. So yeah, it's finally fixed, and it's running, and it's been running for the last 600-700 miles. So I'm fairly confident that we've at least solved the engine issue. At the end of the day, was all of this worth it? All the money spent on parts and all the time spent working on it? I think it depends. If you look at the pure monetary value of all the parts and all the time that I had to spend on this bike, I think I could have gotten a clean DRZ 400S for, you know, probably less money. But at the end of the day, I do want to put big miles on this. I want to take long trips on it. And knowing the bike inside and out, knowing that the insides are basically all fresh, I mean, not the bottom end, but the top end at least, has a lot of value to me. So thanks for coming with me on this journey. Hopefully this is the last big mechanical problem video for the DRZ, and we can now enjoy videos of just enjoying it. But yeah, thanks for spending time watching this, and I will see you on the road.